from Jutland. I really wanted to make this video in the New York Public Library, but it was impossible. So many people here on Saturday, and Saturday is the only day I can come here, like in the daylight. And as I'm here, it's still very loud here, I know, but I just wanted to have like different background. So today I really want to speak about German language, the Deutsche Sprache. I speak German better than English, as I always say, because I have C2 level in German. But how did I reach it? That's an interesting question. So the whole story began 4 years ago when I entered the university in my hometown, Rostov-on-Don. And I had the choice. I could choose between languages. Which languages would I prefer learning at university? I would have primary language and second language. So I was absolutely sure I would start with English and then maybe German as a second language. But the lady, it was just like a Spanish professor, she just convinced me that why would you learn the same language for like 15 years? So you have been studying it for 10 years at school and now you want to do the same thing? No. And that's why I've decided to start to learn German. You know, that was the best decision in my life, still second after moving to New York City. But it gave me so many opportunities in my life. I went abroad twice and I didn't pay for anything. I always had scholarship. And I studied in Germany, and that was like so inspiring. But at that time I didn't know what would I do with the language, because it seemed to be hard, of course. Like in the beginning everything seems to be hard, you just need to keep pushing. But the question is, how did I reach B2 level in just 10 months? From the very scratch, you know, I started from scratch, as you remember. I didn't know a single word in German, I only knew English. But the knowledge of English helped me a lot. Basically, I had classes at university, like grammar and vocabulary and the phonetics, but it wasn't enough, like at all. Every single day I came home after university, I was studying myself much more. I made flashcards with grammar rules in German. It's quite useful because the rules there, you just learn it once and then you apply for all your life in German language. Of course I used Quizlet, but what I loved the most, then I already had like A2, B1 level, is the magazine, German magazine. It's called Deutsch Perfekt. The articles there, not only are they educational in the way you learn German, because there are some new words highlighted and there is the explanation of these words in German language, but they are very interesting. So for like self-improvement, something about traveling, about German culture, prices in Germany, life in Germany, everything. I was so happy to find it one day that I really used it. I kept using it every single day, and I used it in my lessons then when I started teaching German. So that was really the best thing I can advise you for reading. So it's always about structure, the languages, you know. So you start with a structure, grammar, vocabulary structure, but you always have to devote as much time as possible to practicing it. I did it at university, but still there was a group of students and we didn't talk that much. So what I could do, basically, I was speaking to myself. Like I was standing in front of the mirror and I was talking to myself about anything that would like bother me or concern me. And yes, I did it in German. And one more thing I loved as well, it's like very old school, but what we had at the university, we were retelling the fairy tales, you know, like the fairy tales for 2-3 years old German kids. We read it and we did the retelling. You know, it sounds easy, but actually when you just like 2 months you started learning the language and you have to speak freely, even though it's a fairy tale, it was quite hard, you know. And you have to overcome this fear, overcome the fear to speak, because of course you would do a lot of mistakes. This German language is quite hard when we're talking about grammar, but still when you start speaking from the very beginning, this would help you to overcome this fear. So Deutsch Perfekt is a must. That's what I can say regarding the reading part. What helped me to listen, to understand what Germans say is the course podcast, as you remember. The ones I discussed in the video about C2 exam, they are very, very advanced. I started from the easier ones. Slow German with Annik Rubens. Deutsche im Alltag, sagt so. This one is my absolutely favorite. So there you can hear some phrases Germans use, like haben in die Suppe finden or something like this. So the phrases, they're like idiomatic and you can use them in your speech. So that's what I loved as well. Regarding the series and films, I started with Extr. That's just something very, very basic, but I like it. I mean, I started with in English. I started with these two series and in German. The first two series I watched in German with Russian subtitles. I always say you shouldn't do it with Russian subtitles. It wouldn't work. So with the native language subtitles, it wouldn't work. But still, I didn't have the choice, so I watched The Dark. The topic itself is very, very complicated, you know, like time traveling. But I like it. I liked it, and I was so like every single day I was more and more inspired to learn German because I wanted to understand more. I wanted to know more. Cool YouTube channel I watched is called ArteDE. Some small videos with subtitles, some cool topics, a lot of things to watch. Easy German, I'm sure you heard about it. So all these cool channels, they helped me to build my listening comprehension skills and just a bit about speaking. One thing I found cool is doing yoga. It's a German instructor. This girl, her name is Mady Morrison. If you like yoga, you can do it with a foreign language. That would be really cool. For learning any language, I would say you always need discipline, motivation, and love. You need to have the purpose, because I really had this purpose. I thought that I would go to Germany and I would study language there and I would love to see the country, and that's what happened, you know. My advice for people who want to start learning German. A lot of people ask me like, how can you learn the gender of any subject, object? I'm like, just learn it from the beginning. You learn it once and then you memorize it way easier with the time. But don't forget to learn the words, the nouns with article. It's very, very important. And then you see this correlation, the connection, and it's this similar, that's different, and you really build the system of the language in your mind. By the way, talking about students' book I used, at university we had very, very old school students' book. I wouldn't suggest them to you, but for my lessons I used to use Begegnungen. It's quite a good one, and for very structured grammar information and vocabulary. It's, I would say, in terms of vocabulary, it's quite outdated because we're going ahead, we're going forward, and the language changes. But still, for practicing grammar, Begegnungen and this pink Grammatik aktiv, as far as I remember. So that's basically all I wanted to say about my beginning of way of German language. If you have any questions, you know where to write. But I really want you to be inspired to learn the language. German is still not the hardest language, I would say, and you will make it. Just be sure you will. Thank you guys, thank you for watching. I love you all. Till next video, bye bye.